Hello and welcome back to NewsX World. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. The SCO's expansion and China's new military technologies like hypersonic missiles forced Japan to rethink its global strategy. The US-Japan Security Alliance adapts to growing Chinese assertiveness, questioning the effectiveness of soft balancing versus a shift to harder tactics. Joining us now to discuss this issue is Hidekazu Sakai. He is a professor at Kansai Gadai University and an expert in political science and East Asian security. He has extensive experience and a PhD from the University of Hawaii. Sakai offers deep insights into Japan's shifting strategy amid the SCO expansion and China's military advancements. Today he will discuss the evolving security landscape, challenges to Japan's defense posture and the implications for US-Japan cooperation in the face of growing regional tensions. Thank you very much for joining us, Hidekazu Sakai. Let's get straight into this. How do you think the recent SCO expansion changes Japan's regional strategy, given the group's growing influence on Eurasian security?
It's about the couple of kinds of the security we should talk about. One is military security, and India has been very important country for Japan because India is located in between Europe and East Asia. And the Indian Ocean is a critical point for Japan's security as well as India's own security. So I think there is a common interest for both India and Japan, and India doesn't want China to dominate Indian Ocean. That would be a nightmare. China is already has been a big threat to India for many decades since there are Himalaya the border issues in the past and even wars happen. And for Japan, if China dominates Indian Ocean, that will be very, very problematic because Indian Ocean is a middle point between Middle East and East Asia. And for the route of shipping oil from Middle East to Japan, Indian Ocean is very important. So therefore, India and Japan needs to cooperate in the maritime security. So this means huge area to be secured for both nations. And not only the Indian Ocean, but also Malacca Straits after Indian Ocean toward the South China Sea and to go to East China Sea and to go to Japan. Therefore, India's role is very huge. So I think that's why late Prime Minister Abe very valued India as an important partner, and Modi respond to it. So Abe and Modi are quite aware of this security matters for the both nations, and they started cooperate. That's why they started 2+2 talks. And it has been, I think, 3 times meeting already have been taking place. So 2+2 means defense and foreign ministers for both nations meet periodically to talk about critical security issues. So this time, Modi's visit to Japan for the security is very important in order to strengthen the two nations' security development, cooperations developments. And the second point is the economic security. And today, China's economic expansion is obvious to both nations and even become a threat. Why? Because China is trying to dominate the semiconductor market. And Japan somehow tried to work with the United States to alter the situation. And actually, key country is Taiwan. And Taiwan's TSMC, that is the biggest corporation producing semiconductor today in the world. So Japan wants to cooperate with Taiwan, but it's not enough. Now, in the near future, India's role will be very important. So we talk about the supply chain of a semiconductor, and that will be very critical for the India's economic development in the future. Therefore, India and Japan have also common interest in this area. So this is economic security, and we should not forget that there is fact that semiconductor is a critical the component for not only for civilian products, but for military equipment. Therefore, semiconductor will decide the future. When we secure supply chain of semiconductor, Japan and India will still can balance against China. So these two economic security areas are very important to both India and Japan.
Now, moving on, Professor Sakai, how do China's new military technologies, like hypersonic missiles, impact Japan's defense planning and its ability to protect and project power?
Well, that's a very good question. Japan has been aware of the China's deployment of new missiles, especially middle-range missiles, that will be a huge threat to Japan. Therefore, Japan, have been trying to deploy anti-missile systems, and but it's not really successful yet because there are a lot of local, people's resistance to it because it might invite wars over there. Therefore, your questions of a missile it's a huge issue. At this point, Japan is not well prepared for that. So yes, China has been developing a lot of technologies, not only for hypersonic missile, but also China has been steadily increased the number of nuclear warheads. That's more critical issues. Actually, a lot of people don't talk about it, but this is actually biggest headache for Japan.
How does the US-Japan security community adapt to China's increasing military assertiveness, especially with new command and control structures being proposed?
Well, when you touch on US-Japan security community, that's something different from alliance. You should know that. If you talk about alliance, something different. But if you talk about community, that's more peaceful relationship between Japan and the United States. And I'm sure I wrote a book on that actually, US-Japan security community. That was not about alliance, but more about what do you call it, common identity, or sort of they're more care about each other. So it's that kind of relationship never existed between Japan and China. Japan and China have been kind of up and down, long history of relationships, more than 1,000 years. And we might have had sort of a community between those two countries, but now become hostile. And when we talk about US-Japan alliance, certainly now US-Japan alliance is balancing against the rising China in terms of its power, not only in economic aspect, but also in military aspect. Therefore, this is something that we should really note, that US-Japan relationship has been really becoming strong against new threat. That threat used to be Soviet Union for the Cold War period, but now we have new era that China is becoming next common threat to the US-Japan alliance. So this is something that we should really discuss more clearly. Of course, China doesn't like this kind of discussion, and China wants to become, well, maybe not a friend, but at the least partner to both United States and Japan, because there are economic relationships and become almost interdependent. But at the same time, economic interdependence doesn't guarantee hostile political situations, and in particular, when it comes to human rights issues, minorities, or if it comes to surveillance issues in whole China. In particular, many Japanese arrested suddenly with no sort of reasons, And I think many businessmen from Japan kind of afraid of being arrested suddenly without without any the reasonable reasons. Therefore, I think Japan and the United States have been very careful and not using the sort of, against China, but increasingly, obviously, US-Japan alliance becomes balancing against China.
Now we move on once again. Is soft balancing still an effective strategy against China's growing hard power? Or is it a shift towards more hard balancing? Is that necessary?
My observations on current situation of three countries, Japan, United States, and China, is that we reached a very critical point that Japan and the United States need to work together and then increase defense efforts so that China's military ambition will be no use. Therefore, somehow we do not go to the war. If United States withdraw from Japan, that will be the most favorite situation for the China, in particular unification with Taiwan by force. So if Taiwan will be taken over by China, that will be a nightmare for Japan, and Japan will be at least very weak positioned, and in the worst case, Japan will be subjugated to China. Therefore, this is worst scenario for Japan. So what Japan should do is work closely with United States and enhance defense capability, and perhaps not only with the United States, but with more countries like India, for example, and also with Australia, and with Philippines, ideally with South Korea as well. So US-Japan alliance would not be enough, but a more multilateral setting would be necessary. And this might be viewed as containment of China, but we can work together, as as democratic countries, together, that we share value of free trade and freedom of speech and democracy and rule of law. This kind of universal value would be very important weapon. So not only hard security, as you just say, that will is important, but also we'd say soft balance. That's about the ideology, liberal democracy, rule of law, and human rights. These type of the our sort of big flag to wave against China will be also important.
And that is all we have time for. Thank you, Hidekazu Sakai, for speaking to us here on Focal Length. And with that, it's a wrap on this episode. For more international news and updates, stay tuned on NewsX World.
you.